At auction, I would put an estimate on this of $4,000 to $6,000.
Oh my golly, we didn't believe that. That is awesome. Thank you.
Would you pay thousands of dollars for a terrifying, grotesque bird jar or a strangely painted cat? Most people wouldn't even give them a second look. But in the world of antique porcelain, the weirder a piece is, the bigger the fortune it might hold. Today, we're uncovering the most eccentric porcelain finds in Antiques Roadshow history. Pieces that went from family eyesores to holy grails for high-end collectors. Welcome to our channel. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to stay updated on all of our latest collector secrets.
At first glance, this looks like nothing more than a small ceramic box covered with natural swirling bands of color. The owner's family had always known it as a piece of NILOAK pottery that had belonged to the grandmother and remained in Arkansas for generations. Even the name humidor survived only as a family memory, until the appraiser examined the lid and immediately realized that this object had been designed for a very specific purpose.
All I know about this piece is it's NILOAK. It is called a humidor, and it's been in my dad's family. His mother had it in Elaine, Arkansas, because we're all from here. He remembers it as early as 1940.
The fact that the piece had remained in Arkansas gave its history an unusually consistent provenance. The first important clue was the hollow lid with its small perforations, a design unlike that of an ordinary ceramic container. That single feature allowed the appraiser to identify it as a humidor, originally intended to maintain moisture for stored tobacco.
Indeed, this is a humidor. How can you tell it's a humidor?
That I do not know.
From the lid. So that is the dead giveaway of a humidor, is when you have a lid that is pierced and hollow, and you would be putting a sponge in there, a wet sponge.
Before modern humidors became common, ceramic examples like this helped cigar and pipe tobacco retain the proper level of humidity. The survival of the original lid is especially important because it preserves both the object's intended function and its collectible appeal. But what truly sets this piece apart is the NILOAK name and the company's famous MISSIONWARE pottery.
The name NILOAK is actually kaolin spelled backwards.
Yeah.
Kaolin is one of the most important ingredients when you're making pottery. NILOAK was in business in Benton, Arkansas.
Correct.
Unlike many other American art pottery lines of the period, MISSIONWARE achieved its distinctive appearance without relying on colorful glazes. Different naturally colored clays were blended together during the shaping process, producing flowing patterns that made every piece unique. That is why collectors especially value examples with rich, well-balanced color combinations.
These days, a NILOAK humidor like this, in this line, which is called MISSIONWARE,
Okay, MISSIONWARE.
would probably go at auction for about $400 to $600.
The humidor's significance goes well beyond its auction estimate. It retains its original construction, has a clear Arkansas provenance, and belongs to NILOAK's best-known MISSIONWARE line. After more than 80 years in the same family, what once seemed to be nothing more than an old ceramic box now stands as a lasting example of one of the most distinctive traditions in American art pottery. This vase had remained in the same family for more than a century, treasured as a wedding gift rather than as a collectible. The owner knew it was a piece of Rookwood pottery and had heard the name Albert Valentien before, but beyond those few details, its true history remained largely unknown. The most important clues were hidden underneath the vase, where a few small marks preserved the story of its earliest years.
This vase was given to my great-grandmother in Cincinnati, Ohio, as a wedding present in about 1885, I think. I have studied it a little bit. My ex-wife looked into it. She worked at the Museum of Art here. And it's a Rookwood vase. The decorator's name was Valentien, I think.
The earliest years of Rookwood pottery have always attracted strong interest from collectors. It was a period when the company was still experimenting with different artistic styles, allowing individual artists to leave a distinctive mark on each piece they decorated. Simply confirming the date and the artist could completely change the way a vase like this was understood.
This is an early Rookwood mark, and it does say 1882, and 1882 is indeed the date for this. and there's also the mark of the artist, who is Albert Valentine or Valentien. As you said, they're both right underneath.
Albert Valentine was one of Rookwood's most talented early artists, before becoming widely known for his botanical illustrations. The vase also reflects the influence of Japanese art through its flattened circular form and restrained composition, a design approach that became especially popular in the late 19th century. But the feature that impressed the appraiser most was the decorative technique used on its surface.
And what they would often do was in this barbotine style, which is a French word. Another thing I like beside the shape of this is the fact that he did this painting in what's called grisaille. Grisaille means tones of gray.
The combination of the barbotine technique and the grisaille painting style created a landscape with remarkable depth and subtlety. Rather than relying on bold colors, the vase draws attention through light, tonal variation, and a quiet sense of atmosphere. Its early date, Albert Valentien's signature, and its unusual decoration all contribute to making it an outstanding example of Rookwood pottery.
It's a really special piece. At auction, a price for this, an estimate for this, would most likely be somewhere between $1,000 and $1,500.
I really think it might belong in the Cincinnati Museum of Art.
The most memorable moment was not the appraisal itself, but the owner's immediate thought of a museum rather than the market value. After more than a century in the family, the vase now tells not only the story of Rookwood pottery's earliest years, but also the beginning of Albert Valentien's remarkable artistic career within the American art pottery movement. This small vase was preserved for many years not because anyone knew it was valuable, but because it had belonged to the owner's grandmother. It had always remained with an old University of North Dakota yearbook, preserving memories of the years she spent there as an art student. When the family gathered to sort through old trunks filled with keepsakes, the owner chose to keep this vase.
My grandmother went to UND, so I have a yearbook with her, and then the pottery. When she passed away, it came to my mother.
The pottery program at the University of North Dakota became well known for combining artistic design with the study of local clay and mineral resources. Many of its works were never intended for mass production, but instead reflected the creativity and training of individual artists. Because of that, the small marks on the base often reveal far more than the vase's appearance ever could.
It was a gift from, what I've been told, from the lady who actually ran the ceramics department.
Okay. Its piece itself was done by Margaret Cable.
Okay.
Margaret Cable was one of the most influential figures in the University of North Dakota pottery program. Pieces bearing her name are especially appealing to collectors because they represent both a specific artist and an important chapter in the school's artistic history. Yet the underside of this vase still had more to reveal.
And you can see here Margaret Cable's name, and then it says flax. So we can assume that these are flax flowers. And then of course the UND, University of North Dakota School of Mines logo in blue. And a date, I think the date actually is 1926.
Flax flowers are closely associated with North Dakota and frequently appear in artwork inspired by the region. The vase was also decorated using an underglaze technique, allowing the design to sit beneath a clear layer of glaze while adding depth and long-lasting protection. The combination of the artist's name, the date, the technique, and its university connection makes this piece stand out among many other examples of UND pottery.
I think because it is an underglaze style of decoration, it's very pretty, that value at auction would probably be between $1,000 and $1,500. That's a nice souvenir from her time at UND.
Okay, thank you very much.
The vase's importance extends well beyond an auction estimate that exceeded the owner's expectations. It connects directly to a respected artist, a historic university pottery program, and the very years when the owner's grandmother studied there. Together with the yearbook and the family story, it has become more than a ceramic object. It is a lasting reminder of the artistic heritage of the University of North Dakota, carefully preserved for nearly a century. At first glance, all the attention seemed to belong to a French ceramic service that was more than 2 centuries old. With its matching terrine and 9 original plates, it looked like the obvious centerpiece of the appraisal. It was exactly the kind of antique most people would expect to steal the show. But as the conversation seemed to be winding down, the appraiser's eyes drifted toward a small pottery cat sitting quietly beside it. Within seconds, the entire focus of the appraisal changed.
We've got 9 plates
Oh, have you?
of the same thing, go with it.
Really?
Yes, and it's supposed to be 1750, I think, from La Rochelle.
50 to 60?
The dinner service was certainly fascinating. It belonged to the French tradition of faience, a tin-glazed earthenware that was highly prized throughout Europe long before hard-paste porcelain became widely available. Even the terrine revealed the remarkable skill of its maker. A small firing flaw had been carefully disguised with a painted leaf instead of being discarded, turning an imperfection into part of the decoration. Yet none of that was what truly captured the appraiser's attention. Everything changed the moment he turned over the little cat. Stamped beneath the base was a simple signature: ÉMILE. Those few letters identified the work as an early creation by Émile GALLÉ, one of the most influential figures in French decorative arts, and the artist who would later become one of the defining masters of the Art Nouveau movement. Before his spectacular cameo glass and botanical lamps made him internationally famous, GALLÉ spent years experimenting with artistic pottery. This charming cat belonged to that formative period. Its value wasn't simply in its appearance. The expressive pose, the softly modeled features, the rich multicolored glaze, and the flowing lines already revealed the artistic language that would later define Gallé's career. Collectors treasure these early ceramics because they offer a rare glimpse into the beginning of one of France's greatest artistic journeys. Condition also played a major role. The signature remained crisp and easy to read, the original glaze had survived beautifully, and there were virtually no signs of restoration. Those are exactly the qualities serious collectors hope to find.
But this one, perfect condition.
It's 70 for that little.
£70. And that was how long ago?
Oh, about 20 years, I think.
20 years ago. There's a very good £70 of investment, that was. This is
Yeah.
now worth between £3,000 and £5,000.
Is it really?
Very nice pussy.
That valuation became the biggest surprise of the entire appraisal. The most valuable object was not the French pottery that had survived for more than 200 years. Instead, it was the quiet little cat resting beside it. The moment perfectly illustrated an important lesson in the antiques world. Age alone does not determine value. The right artist, the right moment in that artist's career, exceptional originality, and outstanding condition can transform even a small ceramic sculpture into the true star of an entire collection. At first glance, these look like nothing more than a few porcelain dogs sitting on a shelf. But as the owner kept placing pair after pair onto the table, the collection grew so large that the appraiser couldn't help but laugh. By that point, he was no longer looking at a handful of decorative ornaments. He was looking at an entire kennel that had been patiently assembled over several decades.
How many have you got?
Well, 24 or 25.
You've got a whole kennel in here. How long have
I
you...
have bought any for at least 15 years.
Today, Staffordshire dogs are among the most recognizable forms of 19th century British pottery. When they were first made, however, they were simply decorative ornaments created for middle-class homes. Produced in the pottery district of Staffordshire, these spaniel figures were usually displayed in matching pairs on mantelpieces or parlor shelves. They symbolized loyalty, protection, and prosperity. That is why collectors today care less about their size or color than whether the original pair has remained together. After nearly 2 centuries, countless examples have been broken, separated, or lost. Finding an original pair has become increasingly difficult. This collection also contains something even more unusual. Several of the figures are actually inkwell dogs working ink pots cleverly disguised as porcelain dogs. They are much scarcer because they combined everyday function with decorative appeal. Even traces of old ink inside some examples provide evidence that they were genuinely used generations ago. Another reason this collection stands out is its remarkable consistency. Most of the figures still retain attractive original glazes, remain matched with their partners, and have survived in impressively well-preserved condition. That did not happen by accident. It was the result of many years of patient searching, careful collecting, and knowing exactly what to look for.
Well, I think that each pair, as we go through here, let's give you an average. Each pair is probably worth between £400 and £700
For that lot.
each pair. £2,500 to £4,000 for that lot.
Perhaps that is what makes this collection truly special. Its value does not come from a single spectacular figure worth a fortune. Instead, it comes from the owner's quiet dedication to bringing so many original Staffordshire pairs back together over the years. Each pair preserves a small piece of 19th century British ceramic history, and standing together today, they tell a story that is far richer than any one figure could ever tell on its own. Some objects are kept not because anyone knows they are valuable, but simply because one small detail makes them worth holding on to. This vase came from a family estate, and the current owner was the only person who truly wanted to keep it. Her reason was simple. The small blue bird, painted on its surface, had appealed to her from the very first moment.
So how did you get this?
From my dad's estate.
This is a really sweet vase by the firm of Rookwood. Have you heard of Rookwood?
No.
Rookwood was one of the most important names in the American art pottery movement. Its pieces were often decorated by hand, and individual artists could leave their own marks on the objects they created. That meant the base could reveal not only the manufacturer, but also the artist behind the entire composition.
So I will show you the bottom here and the marks, which are the Rookwood pottery mark up here,
Okay.
the XXI for 1921, the number below that, which is the number of that shape, and then the C in a box for the artist, Arthur Conant.
Arthur Conant was known for combining Western painting with the influence of Japanese art. On this vase, he did not try to fill every part of the surface. Instead, the open space, slender branches, and gentle movement create a composition that feels balanced, quiet, and carefully controlled. But the apparently simple background was the detail that interested the appraiser most.
So he really liked Japanese woodblock prints. So you have this prunus tree, and you've got this lovely blue bird. The waves are so wonderful. The waves that are crashing, that is so sweet. And what my friend said was, this may very well be because he knew that doing woodblock prints, you've got these variations of texture.
That restraint separates the vase from many more elaborate works of the same period. Its value comes not from impressive size or brilliant color, but from its refined composition, clear artist's mark, and strong condition. What began as a family keepsake was now being recognized as a complete work by one of Rookwood's most highly regarded decorators.
So that might be why it's there. So you've got a really pretty porcelain vase. At auction, I would put an estimate on this of $4,000 to $6,000.
Oh my golly, we didn't believe that. That is awesome. Thank you. Oh my heaven.
In the end, the detail that made the owner love the vase also became the heart of its story. While others may have seen only an old object from the family estate, she noticed the beauty of the small bird on its surface. That instinctive decision preserved an important Arthur Conant work and showed how personal affection can help a hidden treasure survive through generations. A visit to Goodwill usually ends with a few inexpensive household items, but every so often, something on the shelf looks noticeably different from the mass-produced decorations around it. This vase caught one shopper's attention because of its careful construction and unusual surface. He knew nothing about its maker, age, or history. Still, something about its quality convinced him to take a closer look. The markings underneath would soon reveal why that instinct mattered.
Me and my wife were shopping at a local Goodwill. I saw it sitting on the shelf, and I thought, oh, it's so beautiful. And I knew it was good quality, but I knew nothing about it. So I picked it up and looked, it had markings. And I thought, well, I don't know who it is, but for $4.99, I'm gonna buy it.
In American art pottery, marks on the underside can serve much like a signature on a painting. They may identify the workshop, the artists involved, and sometimes the period in which a piece was created. That information is especially important for pottery made by small studios, where individual craftsmanship matters far more than production volume. Once the appraiser examined these inscriptions, the vase was no longer an anonymous thrift store find.
Overbeck Pottery is an Indiana company. They were 4 sisters. This piece is marked, as almost all Overbeck pieces are. This piece is marked OBK for Overbeck, and the sisters, initials E and F, also incised into the surface of the pot.
Overbeck pottery developed during the American arts and crafts movement, which valued handmade objects over industrial uniformity. Its designs often transformed figures, trees, and natural forms into simplified decorative patterns. This vase gave the appraiser plenty to examine.
It's such a great example of their work. It's colorful, it's matte painted, it's hand thrown, it's tooled, it fired very well. Virtually every side fired evenly, which is a technical achievement. It's got everything it's got to have. This one's got it.
Got my heart thumping.
That assessment placed the vase among the strongest examples collectors hope to find. It combined recognizable artistic identity with craftsmanship, strong condition, and visual impact. Now, only one question remained. How far had a modest goodwill purchase traveled in market value?
At auction, it would bring somewhere between $50,000 and $100,000.
Can't believe that.
And you paid how much for this?
$4.99.
Yet the discovery was about more than profit. A significant work of American art pottery had sat unnoticed among ordinary secondhand goods, waiting for someone to recognize that its beauty deserved a second look. Not every remarkable collection is built through years of searching. This group of objects remained in the owner's family simply because they had a personal connection with George Orr and his pottery studio in Biloxi. For decades, they were regarded as little more than old family keepsakes with sentimental value.
I grew up in Biloxi, Mississippi, and my grandfather worked in the Orr studio. My grandmother was friends with George Orr's son, Geo. And so, consequently, we had some pottery that was given to them at some point.
That history immediately caught the appraiser's attention. It is exceptionally rare for a collection to retain such a direct connection to the artist's own family. George Orr, known as the Mad Potter of Biloxi, became famous for boldly twisting, folding, and reshaping clay into forms unlike anything created by his contemporaries. That extraordinary provenance made the collection far more significant than its appearance alone suggested.
These are quite rare. There's only a handful of these known, and some of the ones that still exist don't have the little cellophane in there. You look through, it's just hollow.
The portrait jug quickly stood out as one of the collection's most remarkable pieces. Its celluloid insert is extremely fragile, and many surviving examples have lost it over time. Finding one that still retains this feature is exceptionally uncommon and highly desirable to collectors. But the surprises were not over yet. The appraiser then revealed another group of objects that was even more unusual.
Now, these are George Orr Bordello tokens.
Yes, my father had them. I'm sure that my grandmother probably gave them to him because they're inappropriate.
Which is why we have them under lock and key here in this pill bottle.
Right.
These Bordello tokens were never intended to function as ordinary coins. Instead, they reflected George Orr's playful sense of humor and unconventional personality. Complete sets have become exceptionally scarce, making them highly collectible today. As George Orr's influence on American art pottery has become more widely recognized, even these small and unusual objects have grown significantly in value.
And finally, this green one, and it's an interesting point. In spite of the damage, Orr's work is so rare that a little bit of damage, if the pieces are there, does not make a world of difference. I would estimate this one again for between $15,000 to $20,000, or maybe $17,000 to $22,000 in spite of the repair to the handle.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
What makes this collection truly exceptional is not the value of any single object. Each piece reveals a different side of George Orr's creativity, from his boldly sculpted pottery to the unusual Bordello tokens that reflected his distinctive personality. More importantly, every item carries a provenance that money alone cannot buy, preserved through a family with direct ties to George Orr's own workshop, and transforming a group of ordinary keepsakes into a collection of remarkable historical and artistic importance.
ACOMA SGRAFFITO Pottery Deer Sculpture. Continuing the countdown is a pottery deer sculpture with a truly unique appearance.
We bought it in New York City probably in the very late 90s. And we found it in a Native American shop that was just behind the Museum of Natural History.
Oh, cool. Tell me what you've learned about the piece. You've done a little bit of research.
I've had a hard time finding information on it except for what's written on the bottom.
the information found on the bottom of the piece became an important clue. It connected the sculpture to ACOMA Pueblo in New Mexico, a community known for a pottery tradition passed down through many generations. But what caught the experts' attention was not only where it came from, it was the special technique used to create all the decoration across the body of the deer.
Now, the other thing that's important to note about this is it's this technique of decoration. It's not painted, it's called SGRAFFITO, S-G-R-A-F-F-I-T-O, which literally means to scratch away.
Unlike simply painting designs onto the surface, SGRAFFITO requires the artist to carefully scratch away layers of material to reveal the images underneath. Every line requires control, because mistakes made during the process are extremely difficult to hide. This technique transformed the surface of the deer into a space filled with different details, symbols, and stories.
I want to point out some of the fascinating designs, you know, the eagle and the deer, and then there's one on the backside that I really love. And this image over here of this dancer is actually from what I believe to be Bodmer, who was an early artist that traveled in the northern plains.
From the eagle and deer to the image of the dancer, every detail makes the sculpture much more than a simple decorative object. It reflects a combination of skill, inspiration from nature, and cultural elements found in Native American art. And when it came to value, the expert believed the story of this piece might still continue to grow.
Today, in this marketplace, in this economy, it's probably worth about what you guys paid for it, in the $500 to $1,000 in a retail store. As an investment piece, I think it's a great investment, and in the next 10 or 20 years, I think it could be worth a lot more.
Great.
From an object purchased simply because of its unusual appearance, it became a piece carrying a story of creativity, culture, and time. Sometimes the most memorable objects are not always the ones with the highest value today, but the pieces people continue to appreciate for generations to come. Japanese Satsuma Dragon Incense Burner. Continuing the countdown is a Japanese ceramic piece with an impressive design featuring a dragon wrapped around its surface. But what makes this KORO special is not only the decoration. Hidden behind its small details are incredible craftsmanship and a family story that began with sea voyages more than a century ago.
It would be my great-uncle used to go to sea. He was an engineer, and he brought them all back. It would be the sailing ships that he would be in before the steam came.
And do you know how long that is?
1900.
1900, before
1900.
From the family story, the expert quickly identified the pieces as Japanese Satsuma pottery. This style is known for its distinctive glaze, complex decoration, and detailed hand craftsmanship. But among the entire group of objects, the dragon incense burner was the piece that immediately stood out.
This is a wonderful piece, and the dragon modelling on here is really quite superb. The unexpected thing is the way the whole thing then just lifts off the top. Yes. It's really quite a clever piece of modelling.
The fascinating part is that the dragon was not created only for decoration. In East Asian culture, dragons often represent power, good fortune, and positive energy. On this KORO, the artist turned that symbol into part of the object's actual function. When used, the incense smoke itself could become part of the display.
Well, this immediately gives away the function of this object. You put the smouldering essence or whatever it is in there, and the smoke comes out through here. And with some luck, it might also appear to come out through the mouth of the dragon. Now, that is therefore a KORO.
That detail is what makes the incense burner feel alive. The dragon does not simply sit on the ceramic surface. It almost appears to awaken when smoke rises from its mouth. The combination of sculptural design, symbolism, and technical skill is why high-quality Satsuma pieces continue to attract collectors. After more than 100 years, the fact that this object still preserves so many fine details makes it even more impressive.
Let's give you some indication of value. The incense burner is around 700 to 1,000, maybe even 1,200 pounds. And the figure on the dragon, well, I would say around 8 to 1,200 pounds. Quite a nice catch for your seafaring great uncle.
And sometimes, a small detail like smoke emerging from a dragon's mouth is enough to reveal the imagination of an artist from over a century ago. If one old doll is enough to make some people uneasy, then a doll with several heads takes that feeling to another level. This case begins with exactly that strange idea. One body, multiple heads, each with a different hairstyle, expression, and personality. For the owner, as a child, it was not just one doll. It felt like 4 dolls inside the same box.
Well, I've heard of multiple personalities, but this really does take the biscuit, doesn't it?
Well, no, I liked it. I was rather fascinated by it. And I did used to put the different heads on from time to time.
Yes, because
it's like having 4 dolls.
The concept is clever, but also a little unsettling. Change the head, and the whole character changes. One head had sleeping eyes, another had short hair, another had blonde curls, and another had braids. But for the expert, the real key was not just the number of heads. It was the maker's marks and the original box.
She is made of bisque, or the heads are made of bisque, because it says here Germany and the number 174. It actually says Kästner, and Kästner will be or is the name of the manufacturer.
Kästner is an important name in the world of German dolls, and like many valuable doll cases, the connection to Thuringia gives the story more weight. But the maker is only part of it. What makes this set stand out is that it is still in its original case, with the label, and in condition so good the expert can hardly believe it was ever played with.
And Thuringia was the great doll-making area of Germany in the 19th century. In its original case, with the label still there, almost unplayed with. Now,
I did used to play with it.
You were obviously incredibly careful. Date.
That is the sweetest twist in this case. The owner really did play with it, changing the heads from time to time, yet kept it carefully enough that more than a century later, almost everything was still complete. And in collectibles, complete can be the difference between an ordinary item and one worth chasing.
And I would have said that the doll herself, just as she comes, would be worth perhaps £300 or £400. But with the other heads and the fact that she's complete in her original box, I would have thought we're talking about more like £1,500.
One doll on its own might be worth only a few £100s, but with the extra heads, the original box, the label, and a nearly complete condition, the value rises to around £1,500. This case is not a 6-figure shock, but it proves a very real rule. The more original and complete a collectible is, the more its value can change. Not every valuable antique is purchased after months of careful research. Sometimes, everything begins with a single moment when an object is simply too beautiful to ignore. That's exactly how the owner came home with this remarkable pair of French porcelain vases. She wasn't searching for a rare collectible or an investment. She was simply looking for 2 decorative pieces for her fireplace, and these immediately caught her attention.
I was looking for 2 large pieces for my fireplace mantle. I walked in a home of some antique dealers, and these just took my breath away. I bought them for their visual appeal. I looked for marks and I couldn't find anything.
So often you get one, and that's not the case here, that 2 of them have survived.
For the appraiser, however, none of that was a problem. The porcelain body, the quality of the glaze, and the sculptural modeling immediately pointed to Limoges porcelain, one of France's finest ceramic traditions during the second half of the 19th century. Every sculpted figure, every decorative detail, and the elegant combination of glossy glazed surfaces with delicate biscuit porcelain demonstrated the remarkable skill of the artists who created them.
And the condition is just amazing for this size and the potential for these, with all of the different feet and hands coming out, that something could have happened to them.
What impressed the appraiser even more than the artistry was the condition. With so many projecting hands, feet, flowers, and delicate sculptural elements, accidental damage would have been almost unavoidable over more than a century. Yet both vases had survived together. For collectors, finding a complete matching pair is far more unusual than finding a single example, making sets like this considerably more desirable whenever they appear on the market.
And what did you pay for the pair?
I paid $1,500 for the pair.
In today's market, in a well-established auction house, I would expect them to sell in the range of $4,000 to $6,000.
That is nice.
What began as a purchase based entirely on visual appeal ended with a valuation of $4,000 to $6,000. Number 13 is a reminder that instinct can sometimes become a collector's greatest advantage. Not every remarkable discovery begins with expert knowledge, careful research, or years of experience. Sometimes simply recognizing exceptional beauty is enough to lead to a truly memorable find. Not every treasure is discovered in a prestigious auction house. Sometimes it is simply sitting in a tray of miscellaneous odds and ends, waiting for someone to recognize its true significance. That is exactly how this tiny piece began its journey to Antiques Roadshow.
Wasn't it? We had a tray of different odds and ends, little things, glassware and sort of things, and this was amongst them.
Was it?
And just purchased for a couple of pounds.
For just a couple of pounds, almost no one would have expected this little sauce boat to be anything special. Yet the moment the appraiser picked it up, he immediately realized he was looking at something remarkably rare. Although its decoration resembles mid-18th century Chinese export porcelain, it's actually an early example of Worcester porcelain, one of England's first porcelain factories. It was made during a period when English potters were still experimenting with techniques and decorative styles inspired by the Far East while developing an identity of their own. Pieces from this pioneering era survived in only very limited numbers, making them highly desirable among collectors of early English ceramics.
It is actually amongst the most important pieces of early English porcelain we've ever had on a roadshow.
That is not the kind of statement heard very often on Antiques Roadshow. What makes this piece exceptional is not flawless condition, but its historical importance. It still bears evidence of its long journey through time, including imperfections dating back to the original firing process and minor wear accumulated over centuries. For collectors of early Worcester, however, those details matter far less than rarity and provenance. Surviving examples from the factory's earliest years are extraordinarily scarce, and every new discovery helps tell the story of how England's porcelain industry first emerged.
I mean, it really is. It's a very rare little object. I would give a wide estimate on this, somewhere between £5,000 and £10,000.
No.
The tiny object, once overlooked in a bargain tray, was ultimately valued at between £5,000 and £10,000. Number 11 is a perfect reminder that in the world of antiques, size rarely determines importance. Sometimes the smallest objects preserve the biggest chapters of history, and pieces measured in just a few inches can become some of the most sought-after treasures in the entire collecting world. Come to a pair of sculptures that quietly remained with one family for well over a century. At first glance, many people would simply see decorative lion figures. In Chinese culture, however, they represent something far more meaningful, symbols of protection, strength, and prosperity that have traditionally stood guard at temples, palaces, and grand residences.
My wife's grandmother's cousin and her husband traveled the world in the early 1900s. They would ship back all the items that they had accumulated while in that country.
Over the generations, most of that remarkable collection disappeared, but this pair survived intact. The moment the appraiser saw them, he immediately recognized them as a pair of Buddhistic lions, guardian figures traditionally created as a male and female set. For centuries, sculptures like these have been placed at entrances to protect the buildings behind them, making them some of the most recognizable symbols in traditional Chinese decorative art. Their impressive size, bold modeling, and remarkably well-preserved condition already suggested that these were far more than ordinary decorative objects.
These are what are called Buddhistic lions, and these were created in sets, a male and female.
Right.
So the male is on your side with the ball.
Right.
The mother has the little baby.
The next feature that caught the appraiser's attention was the brilliant turquoise glaze covering the entire surface. This distinctive color first became popular during the Kangxi period and remains one of the most important clues when dating Chinese ceramics. Combined with the modeling and craftsmanship, it allowed him to place the figures in the late 19th century. Their strong presence, historical symbolism, and the fact that both figures have remained together as a complete pair for more than 100 years make them especially desirable to collectors today.
They're terrific, they're really bold, they're big, they're in good condition. At auction, they would make somewhere between $6,000 and $9,000 today.
Very nice, all right.
In the end, the pair was valued at between $6,000 and $9,000. It is a fitting valuation for objects that combine artistic quality with centuries of Chinese cultural tradition. Number 9 reminds us that in the world of antiques, preserving a complete pair over generations can be just as valuable as age itself, making these guardian lions every bit as remarkable today as when they first stood watch more than a century ago. At first glance, most people would assume this is a beautiful piece of iridescent glass. In fact, even its owner believed exactly that. But after only a few seconds of examination, the appraiser realized it was something far rarer, and that behind it was an unexpectedly moving story.
It belonged to a gentleman named Jack Sawyer. Well, Katrina hit. A lot of his pieces were lost. When Jack found out that he was terminally ill, he sent this to me.
The vase once belonged to Jack Sawyer, an art collector from New Orleans. After Hurricane Katrina devastated the area, much of his collection was lost forever, but this remarkable piece survived. When Jack learned that he was terminally ill, he chose to send it to a close friend who had always admired it. Long before the appraisal even began, the vase already carried enormous sentimental value. It was more than an artwork, it was a final gift from one collector to another, preserving both a treasured object and the memory of the person who had cared for it for so many years.
It does look like that. It looks like iridescent glass, but it is a piece of pottery.
That revelation became the first surprise of the appraisal. The vase was not glass at all, but a masterpiece of pottery produced by Jolly, Hungary's most celebrated ceramics manufacturer, famous for its remarkable Eosin glaze, which creates shimmering colors that shift as light moves across the surface. As the examination continued, the appraiser became equally impressed by the elaborate metal framework surrounding the vase. The sculpted peacocks and flowing Art Nouveau ornamentation transformed it from a beautiful ceramic vessel into a highly sophisticated decorative artwork, combining multiple materials and exceptional craftsmanship.
This is a collaboration between a Hungarian Art Nouveau company and a German Art Nouveau company. Orion was located in Nuremberg, Germany.
The greatest surprise came next. While the ceramic body was made by Jolly, the elaborate metal mount was created by Orion, a German Art Nouveau company based in Nuremberg. The two firms collaborated for only a brief period, making surviving examples like this exceptionally scarce. That rare partnership has placed these works in a category of their own, attracting strong interest from collectors who appreciate both Art Nouveau design and the history behind these unusual collaborations.
This is a very special thing. On today's market at auction, I would value it between $7,000 and $10,000. One almost identical to this sold at auction within the last 2 years for $12,000.
Well, I love Jack, but I didn't know he loved me that much.
The vase was ultimately valued at between $7,000 and $10,000, while a nearly identical example has previously sold for $12,000 at auction. Yet, what makes number 8 unforgettable is not simply its market value. It is the story of a rare Art Nouveau masterpiece that became one collector's final gift, carrying both extraordinary craftsmanship and the lasting memory of a cherished friendship into the next generation. We arrive at a vase that is rare not only because of its age, but because it was created during the closing chapter of one of America's most celebrated artistic legacies. The family had always known it was a Tiffany vase, yet they never imagined there was an even more remarkable story behind the famous name.
And my birthday was coming up, and my mother said to my grandmother, "How about giving Tiffany," which is my name, "a Tiffany?" And my grandmother said, "Sure, which one do you want?"
The vase was purchased for one wonderfully simple reason. Since the daughter of the family was named Tiffany, her grandmother came up with the playful idea of giving Tiffany a Tiffany. That birthday gift remained in the family for decades before eventually appearing on Antiques Roadshow. The moment the appraiser saw it, he knew he was looking at something far more unusual than a typical Tiffany vase.
This is it's actually a very unusual vase. In fact, I'm not sure I've seen another one like it.
That is the kind of comment experts rarely make. Although Louis Comfort Tiffany produced thousands of remarkable glass objects, this particular design is almost one of a kind. Its layered glass construction and flowing organic patterns immediately stood out as an exceptional example from Louis C. Tiffany Furnaces Incorporated. When the appraiser examined the base, a tiny mark revealed exactly when the vase had been made.
It was made in 1926. The reason I know that, on the bottom, it is very difficult to see.
The vase was produced in 1926, several years after Louis Comfort Tiffany's death, when Louis C. Tiffany Furnaces Incorporated continued creating works based on the artistic legacy he had established. Because the company operated for only a brief period, pieces bearing this mark have become exceptionally scarce and are highly sought after by collectors. They represent the final chapter of one of the greatest names in American decorative arts.
In a retail venue, I could see this selling for between $30,000 and $50,000.
Oh my God. Oh, I had no idea.
I think it's really lucky that you were named Tiffany.
The final valuation came in at $30,000 to $50,000. What began as a birthday present chosen simply because of a shared name had become one of the most remarkable discoveries in today's countdown. Number 5 reminds us that some of the most memorable Antiques Roadshow stories are not just about extraordinary values, they're also about the simple, heartfelt reasons an object becomes part of a family's history. Some and once controversial designs became what made them unforgettable. Sometimes the greatest value begins with seeing beauty where others do not. To the family, it was simply a beautiful Celadon charger brought back from Japan many years ago. No one imagined they had been living with a masterpiece created for the Imperial Court of China.
It is a Celadon bowl that was a gift to me from my uncle, who brought it from Japan. This stuff sat in my grandmother's attic for a good many years, and finally he rediscovered it and gave it to me as a Christmas gift to my husband.
The charger remained in the family as a special Christmas gift, and for years that was the end of its story. It was so large that the owner even took a photograph of her cat sitting comfortably inside it. Everyone laughed at the memory, but while the audience enjoyed the story, the appraiser was already focused on something entirely different.
I've actually got a picture of my cat sitting in that bowl at some point or another.
The first is the label on this box.
The first thing he examined was not the charger itself, but the wooden presentation box. That box unlocked the entire mystery. It revealed that this was not a Japanese piece at all, but an Imperial Chinese Celadon charger made during the Yongzheng reign. The elegant jade green glaze, the finely molded dragon decoration, and the exceptional firing quality all reflected the extraordinary standards of the imperial kilns at Jingdezhen, where only the finest porcelains were produced for the Qing court.
At auction today, in 2021, I would put perhaps a conservative auction estimate of $80,000 to $120,000.
And it's under my bed all the time.
The final auction estimate came in at $80,000 to $120,000. Only then did the owner realize that an imperial masterpiece had been sitting underneath her bed for years. Number 3 perfectly captures what makes Antiques Roadshow so fascinating. Sometimes the greatest treasures are not displayed in museums or locked away in famous collections. They are quietly waiting to be rediscovered inside someone's own home. Ancient Greek terracotta Mother Goddess figurine. Continuing the countdown is a small artifact created not from marble or precious metal, but simply from fired clay. At first glance, this goddess figurine may appear simple, but it survived for thousands of years before appearing in an antique shop in Malta. And the biggest question was not just where it was found, but which ancient civilization it truly came from.
Very early figurine of a goddess in terracotta, made, I suppose, originally in Rhodes. Was it found here in Malta?
I managed to buy it from a local antique shop.
Although it was purchased in Malta, the expert believed the piece may have originated from Rhodes based on its style and material. With ancient objects like this, their journey through trade and time can often be extremely complex. But what made this figurine truly special was its incredible age.
I suppose in date, it ought to be, and I think it is, about the 5th century BC. What is that? That's 2,400 years old?
The idea that a terracotta object could survive for more than 2,000 years is surprising to many people. Terracotta may seem fragile, but when fired properly and preserved under the right conditions, it can last through countless generations. The small details on the surface also reveal how ancient craftsmen created pieces like this.
It's in a lovely soft terracotta body, an orangey clay, with very typical vent holes, the holes for the gases to come out during the firing. Otherwise, a hollow figurine would explode unless it has vent holes for the gases to come out.
These small holes were not damage, but an important part of the production process. They show that the craftsman understood how to work with clay, heat, and the hollow structure needed during firing. Even though the figurine is no longer perfect after thousands of years, it still preserves the beauty and story of the ancient world. However, age alone does not determine value. Condition, rarity, and ownership history also play a major role in how collectors evaluate an artifact.
Pounds,
about 20 years
English
ago.
pounds.
And that was about 20 years ago.
£10 seems ridiculously cheap for something this age,
right.
even though a bit damaged. In English terms, I suppose one's looking at something worth £140, £150.
A value of around £150 may not be a huge number, but the story behind the object is what makes it remarkable. A simple piece of clay was transformed by the hands of an ancient artist into the image of a goddess and survived for more than 2,400 years. It may not be a treasure worth millions, but it remains a rare connection between people today and a world that disappeared a very long time ago.
Not every object dismissed as ugly is without value. For years, the owner's family simply referred to this piece as the ugly vase. She bought it from a Dutch antiques dealer without realizing she was taking home the work of one of France's most celebrated artists.
We call it the ugly thing or the ugly vase. I bought it about 15 years ago.
And do you remember how much you paid?
Yes, $580.
As soon as the appraiser examined the piece, its appearance was the last thing on his mind. What immediately stood out was the way it blended human, animal, and bird forms into a single sculptural design. That distinctive visual language pointed directly to Jean Cocteau, one of the most influential and versatile French artists of the 20th century.
It is such a wonderful, modernist, bizarre piece. It has animal, it has bird, it has female, figural, all of this happening in this piece of glazed ceramic that was done by a very famous artist called Jean Cocteau.
After World War II, Jean Cocteau turned to ceramics and quickly developed a style filled with surreal imagery and remarkable imagination. This vase perfectly reflects that vision, revealing a different character each time it is viewed from another angle. Yet the most important detail was hidden underneath. The inscription and edition number would ultimately determine just how rare this piece really was.
And then you could see on the bottom, it says here, original edition from Jean Cocteau, Studio Madeline-Jolly, and 6 out of 10. This is a very small edition, but this is the first time I've seen this particular one.
An edition of only 10 examples makes this vase remarkable even among dedicated Jean Cocteau collectors. Studio Madeline-Jolly produced these works in extremely limited numbers under the artist's supervision, so examples like this rarely reach the market. It is no surprise that Cocteau's ceramic works have become increasingly sought after by collectors of modernist art.
If we were to put this at auction, though it is an edition, easily we would put this in at $10,000 to $15,000.
Sorry. That's fun for an ugly vase. Perfect. Wonderful. Thank you. Very good.
In just a few minutes, the family's ugly vase had become a work of art worth tens of thousands of dollars. Its value comes not only from Jean Cocteau's name, but also from its exceptionally limited edition and a design so rare that even the appraiser had never encountered another example. Sometimes, the most unconventional works are exactly the ones collectors want the most. Many antiques are purchased with the hope that they will increase in value over time. This pottery vessel was different. The owner's great-grandfather simply brought it home because he found it interesting, and for decades the family regarded it as nothing more than a cherished keepsake.
My great-grandfather was a collector of anything of interest.
And so this struck his interest and he acquired it, and my grandmother then inherited it upon his passing, and I've now inherited it upon her passing.
The moment the appraiser studied its shape and painted decoration, he knew this was not pottery made for the tourist trade. Instead, it came from the Zia Pueblo, one of the oldest pottery-making communities in New Mexico. Its uninterrupted history within the same family was another important advantage, helping preserve both its condition and its documented ownership through generations. But the vase's greatest significance could be found in the painted designs covering its surface.
It's from the Zia Pueblo, who are in New Mexico. And they have a great tradition of pottery like this, especially these large oyas. This pot dates from around 1930, 1935.
The rainbow, bird, and deer motifs reflect a period when Zia Pueblo artists blended long-standing traditions with the growing interest of collectors during the early 20th century. Although decorative styles evolved, the pottery-making techniques continue to be passed down from one generation to the next. For collectors of Native American pottery, identifying the Pueblo is only the first step. The greater challenge is determining the family of potters who actually created the piece.
There are a couple of prominent families who made these, and the Medina were one. I tried to do a little research before I came on here, and I couldn't lock that in.
That is why provenance plays such an important role in evaluating Pueblo pottery. A single document or new discovery about the maker can significantly increase an object's value. Even without a confirmed artist, this vessel already possesses many qualities collectors look for, including its early date, excellent preservation, and well-documented family history.
I think probably in the realm of $25,000 to $35,000.
No.
Oh yes, absolutely. And if you do the research and you can lock in one of the families, like the Medinas or something, it could be more than that.
No kidding.
Is that good news?
Very good news.
That appraisal recognizes far more than the age of the pottery. It also reflects the enduring artistic tradition of the Zia Pueblo and the cultural significance preserved in every painted detail. What makes this story so remarkable is that a vessel purchased simply because it looked interesting eventually became one of the family's most valuable treasures. What could make a salon suite purchased less than a year ago suddenly be valued at tens of thousands of pounds? At first glance, it looks like nothing more than an elegant antique furniture set with graceful flowing curves. But the longer the experts studied it, the clearer it became that this was far more than ordinary furniture. Every armrest, every chair leg, and every sweeping line reflected the unmistakable design language of Art Nouveau, the artistic movement that transformed European decorative arts during the late 19th century.
We bought it a year ago in Suffolk.
Okay.
So it hasn't been in the family, it's very new to us, and we really don't know anything much about it, except we think it's French Art Nouveau, and that's about where it ends.
There was no family history and no paperwork proving its origins, so the furniture itself had to tell the entire story. Art Nouveau emerged as a response to the rise of industrial manufacturing, when artists sought to bring the beauty of nature back into everyday life. Instead of rigid, straight lines, they embraced forms inspired by branches, vines, and the gentle movement of the natural world. This salon suite captures that philosophy beautifully. The armrests curve like growing branches. The backrests flow together in the signature whiplash lines associated with the movement. And the entire structure feels almost alive rather than assembled from separate pieces of wood. The material also plays an important role. Crafted from pearwood, the suite benefits from a fine, even grain that allows delicate carving while preserving the elegance of every curve. Those details quickly pointed the appraiser toward the Nancy School in France, home to some of the finest Art Nouveau creations. The overall design strongly recalls the work of Louis Majorelle, the celebrated furniture designer who transformed functional pieces into works of art inspired by nature. However, a closer examination revealed one important distinction. The craftsmanship was impressive, but it lacked the exceptional refinement normally associated with authenticated Majorelle workshop pieces. As a result, the expert concluded that this was most likely a suite created in the style of Louis Majorelle, rather than one produced by his workshop. The upholstery had also been replaced with a later fabric, reducing some of its originality. Even so, the suite remains remarkably complete. preserving its overall structure and most of its original carved elements after well over a century, qualities that continue to make it highly desirable among collectors.
So, if I was to go out and buy this today, I would expect to pay round about £2,500. So, I hope that comes within the parameters of acceptability.
It does.
It does. Absolutely. That's safe, bearing in mind you only bought it a year ago.
It was the kind of valuation that would make anyone look at a recent purchase in a completely different way. Its value does not come from gold, extravagant decoration, or precious materials. Instead, it lies in how faithfully it preserves the spirit of Art Nouveau, a period when furniture was elevated into art itself. More than 100 years later, designs shaped by the Nancy School continue to captivate collectors around the world, turning what once seemed like an ordinary salon suite into a truly remarkable treasure. Some antiques are treasured because everyone in the family has always known how valuable they are. Others sit quietly on a shelf for decades, with no one realizing what they truly own. This vase belonged to the second category. It was purchased by chance at a market in Kyiv and remained with one family through war and the upheavals of the 20th century. Only after they saw a remarkably similar vase in a museum did they begin to wonder whether they had been living with something extraordinary all along.
My mother and my grandmother went to the market, to the food market, just to, weekly shop. And when they were leaving the market, all of a sudden they spotted this vase and they bought it. I don't know how much they paid.
And I thought, oh, what's going on there? And I looked at the artist, and it was Émile GALLÉ.
Within just a few minutes, the appraiser confirmed what the family had hoped for over the years. This was indeed an authentic work by Émile GALLÉ, one of the leading figures of the French Art Nouveau movement and the driving force behind the École de Nancy. GALLÉ did far more than create beautiful glass. He transformed glass into a storytelling medium inspired by flowers, insects, and the natural world. This vase is an outstanding example of cameo glass. Multiple layers of colored glass were fused together, then carefully carved and acid-etched to reveal the colors hidden beneath the surface. A single mistake during the process could ruin the entire piece. But GALLÉ went even further. He added raised details to the sunflower design and embedded thin metallic foils between the layers of glass, allowing light to reflect in different directions. The result is a remarkable combination of color, depth, and light that changes with every viewing angle. Its design also reflects the influence of Japanese art, with flowing natural forms and the graceful lines that became hallmarks of Art Nouveau. What makes this vase even more extraordinary is its journey. It did not survive inside a famous museum or a prestigious private collection. Instead, it remained with an ordinary family through war, separation, and generations of history. That provenance gives the vase a significance beyond its artistic beauty. It also preserves the story of the people who quietly protected it for almost a century.
Well, it's good, but how good? Tell us, please.
Tell us.
Well, if you had to go out and replace this vase, you are looking at something in the region of £8,000 to £12,000.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That valuation finally revealed the true significance of what the family had preserved for so many years. But the greatest value of this vase has never been measured by its price alone. After more than a century, it still bears Émile GALLÉ's signature, still showcases the techniques that made him one of the defining artists of Art Nouveau, and still carries the story of a family that protected it through some of history's most difficult times. Sometimes a masterpiece survives not only because of the genius who created it, it also survives because ordinary people quietly chose to preserve it for future generations. How valuable could a small silver tray really be? At first glance, it hardly seems like the kind of object that would keep an appraiser studying it for very long. It has no elaborate decoration, no precious gemstones, and nothing especially dramatic about its appearance. But some of the most modest-looking antiques often hide the richest stories. In this case, just a few tiny marks stamped underneath the tray were enough to change the way the experts saw it completely.
As far as I know, it's a silver salver.
Right.
My grandfather bought it in 1944 for £30.
Right. Most people, when you find a salver like this, will tell you straight, oh, it's a
visiting card tray.
Right.
The very first thing the appraiser did was not admire the top of the tray, but turn it over and examine its hallmarks. For antique silver, those marks are almost like a birth certificate, revealing where it was made, the quality of the silver, and sometimes even when it was produced. This piece is a salver, a type of serving tray commonly found in wealthy homes throughout Britain and Ireland during the 18th century. Originally, it was used to hold tea or coffee services when entertaining guests, at a time when serving tea had become a symbol of refinement and social status. The marks underneath immediately revealed its Irish origin. The Hibernia figure and the crowned harp are distinctive hallmarks of the Dublin Assay Office, the renowned institution responsible for testing silver in Dublin. Their presence alone made the tray far more significant than its understated appearance suggested. Although the date letter has not survived, the maker's mark remains remarkably clear. Combined with the style of the hallmarks, the appraiser concluded that the salver was made in Dublin sometime between 1743 and 1745. That is also why Dublin silver has long been prized by collectors. During the 18th century, Ireland produced far less silver than London, making surviving examples considerably scarcer today. This tray also retains its original coat of arms, cartouche, and most of its hallmarks, details that greatly enhance its appeal to collectors. In the world of antique silver, size has never been the defining factor. What truly matters is clear provenance, excellent preservation, and the ability to trace an object's history through its original hallmarks.
I would think that you would have to insure that as an Irish one. Irish ones are always worth more than the equivalent English example. As an Irish one, I would say you would need to insure it for £1,000.
Really?
It's a smashing little salver.
Gosh, thank you.
Thank you for bringing it in.
Thank you.
It may not be one of the highest valuations ever revealed on Antiques Roadshow, but it perfectly illustrates how collectors judge antique silver. Its greatest value lies not in the amount of silver it contains or in its size, but in the history preserved within those tiny stamped marks. Nearly 3 centuries after it was made, this little salver can still transport experts back to Dublin in the 1740s, where skilled silversmiths created an object that continues to be admired and collected today.